Hey everybody, and welcome to the Coach's Corner podcast presented by On Track College Advising. I'm your host, Ryan Moore, and today I'm grateful to have Brandon Sturman from Central College in Pella, Iowa join the show. Brandon, thanks so much for being here and taking the time to connect with us.
Of course, thanks for having me. I'm excited to talk a little bit and kind of share more about myself and our school and program.
Yeah, I'm excited for people to get to know your story here. So, for those not familiar, can you share some of your coaching journey with us? I know that you weren't always a track and field coach, so how did that career begin for you, and then the coaching career in general, but then how did you get into track?
For sure, yeah. So I attended Valparaiso University to play football, college football. I did that for 4 years, and I think it was after my senior year, I was working with our defensive coordinator as like a student coach in the spring, just kind of helping out. And then, then I started thinking, well, maybe this is something I want to continue to do. So I started looking for GA jobs. And then he just kind of reached out to me one day about halfway through the semester, I think, and was just like, would you want to stick around here and be a GA? And I was like, sure, why not? So then I kind of stuck around, obviously, for 2 more years at Valpo, did the GA. I was looking for full-time jobs, and we had a connection with a new coach over at Aurora University. He was a former GA at Valpo back in the day, and so there was that connection, and they had a job opening. And so it was primarily for football, but they told me that when I interviewed that I had to be a part-time track coach as well. So that's kind of what got me into the track world, and it's taken me to where I am today. I do enjoy it a lot, and I mean, football is nice. That was my life for a long time, but I do really enjoy the track and field world. It's just so different with the individuality and stuff like that, and that balance of individual versus team. But yeah, so I took the job at Aurora, and coming from football background, I did have some experience with speed work. Like we did our 6 a.m. workouts, and we did speed training and acceleration and all that. So I had a background there, but over my 8-ish years at Aurora, I just learned more and more, from other coaches on staff and just going to convention and that stuff. And so now I kind of focus on the sprints, but I also do some of the horizontal jumps. It's kind of my specialty. So that's kind of what got me into the coaching world. And then during my time at Aurora, I was doing both for quite a while. And then we had a lot of football changes with the staff and head coaches, and eventually it got to me being let go on the football side. But Ryan Chapman, who was the head track coach at Aurora at the time, asked me if I wanted to come back and be full-time for the track side because there was a coach that had just left. And I said, sure. So then I jumped into track full-time and did that for a couple years until Ryan left. And then the AD trusted me enough to become the head track coach. Did that for a few years and then was able to move on here to Central College, where my wife took a job as a volleyball coach. So we had an opportunity to be at the same school and be in the same town, which is not too common anymore these days.
Yeah, especially in the coaching worlds.
Yeah, but been here 7 years, going on 7 years now. So good place, love it, and really enjoy it. Yeah. So yeah, that's kind of how I got to where I was gonna, I never did track as a little kid. I did other sports, soccer, lacrosse, baseball, but never ice hockey, never got into the track world. But looking back, it would have kind of been nice. I think I would have enjoyed some of it. So, but
what was your hometown?
Brookville, Maryland. So
okay, I was going to say,
technically,
you're playing lacrosse and hockey. You're definitely East Coast.
East Coast, yeah. Definitely a small town, but obviously the East Coast is more condensed. So, the town is like 1,200 people, but you got a town of 10,000 like 10 minutes down the road. So kind of best of both worlds. But yeah. But I've lived in the Midwest now longer than I have out East. So, I've been in Indiana, Illinois, now Iowa. So I got most of the I's covered at least. So.
What's next, Nebraska?
Yeah, Nebraska would be the next one over, or I could just jump to Idaho, so and just get the I's finished off. But I don't foresee moving anytime soon. So.
No, that's good. Yeah. So, what's more demanding, being a track and field coach or a football coach?
Oh, that's a tough one. Huh? Football's tough just from the grind. It's like condensed in those 4 or 5 months. So I think it's more demanding during that time of year, but because you're literally like 7 days a week. You got to watch film and all this stuff, Track's just more spread out, I guess, over 10 months really. So that's what I think I love about it is you're in season longer with the kids. Like the worst part about football was like you're with them during the season, you're interacting with them every day, and then you don't see your kids that often during the off season, right? Like you have strength coaches that take care of that, and you're just on the road recruiting. And you got to obviously recruit for track all year round as well, but it's just also with your team all year round, which I think that's what I enjoy most about it probably is just being with the kids, 8 months out of the year versus 4 months out of the year. So I guess they're just demanding in their own ways. One's more spread out versus the other.
So what coaches have you grown under, and how have those guys impacted you as a coach and helped shape your coaching philosophy? I mean, you've got the football side, but now you've got track too. So, I mean, those are some different worlds for sure. But coaching itself is as a sport in itself.
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, obviously I've not had a ton of stops, but probably learned something a little bit from each one. With my time at Aurora, the biggest thing I learned from Chapman, who was the head track and cross country coach at the time, was probably more just recruiting, like how to recruit a little bit differently, how to be more active and aggressive with that, because that was where he was a great coach, but recruiting is where he thrived. Like, he just was so good at talking to people and communicating, and that's probably an area I always can improve on, is just how I talk and the message and stuff that you kind of give out when you're recruiting. So that's probably what I learned most from him. From the football staff wise at Aurora, I'm trying to think, probably just like football wise, you just learn how to structure things a little bit better, because it's just so, like, practices have different periods and how to adjust on the fly. I think that's something I might have learned from football, is just being able to make adjustments and always kind of have a plan B. And I think sometimes in the track world you get too many coaches that are just like, it's my way or the highway, and it's the only way I know how to train, and it's the only way that works, and that's not realistic. There's about 100 different ways you can skin a cat, I think, in track and field. And being an individual sport, I think you got to take advantage of that. So I think coming from the football world, I've kind of learned how to be able to handle some of that adversity and make adjustments and that type of thing. So, but yeah, I mean, here at Central, it's kind of a unique situation for me, and I've learned a lot just from other coaches on staff. So our head football coach here at Central, he has the same exact path I do, but he just went the other way. So he's a Central alum, played football, got into coaching. He's been all over, from down to Illinois Wesleyan, up at Beloit, a lot of D3 schools. He was in Rochester, New York, but he was a head track coach at one point. Like, he was trying to get into football, but he got to a school and they're like, "You're a defensive coordinator, but we need a head track coach." And so he took the job, and then he obviously transitioned to the football world full time. So just talking with him and kind of figuring out how he did that type of stuff, and has been interesting too. So,
talk to me about the makeup of your team. What would you say is the weight of the team? You have a heavy distance side of things? Is there a heavy sprints or throws or jumps?
Yeah, so when I got hired here, the biggest reason they hired me, or this position, was our head cross country coach, currently Coach Dunham, was the head track and field and cross country coach. But at the time, he wasn't coaching our women's distance team. He had like an assistant that had been here for a while, and that guy recruited and coached all the women's distance runners. But that side of the program was struggling. The men's side was doing well. The men's track team had won conference right before I got here. So he was doing some good things, but he wanted to really get that distance squad better as a whole group. So he moved over to just distance, and then they hired a head track coach. Yes, right now our team makeup, because of the new transition, distance heavy. I mean, they're about half our team. I'd say our distance runners are about half our team. We're about 130 this year, numbers wise. And he's done a phenomenal job, like, getting the women up to par with the men. And the women might have actually overtaken the men. They've had a little bit more national success than on the men's side recently. But so distance and our multis. Traditionally, Central College, from you look back as far as we've had track and field, the decathlon, heptathlon, that has been like our bread and butter. It's something we've always done, and we've done a good job. We have multiple All-Americans, national champions in that event. And obviously those kids are some of your best athletes. So because of that, we've always had good jumpers and hurdlers as well. So, and then just with me taking over, we've been able to bolster our sprints crew a little bit, on that side. We had some years where the relays did really well at Central, and we're trying to get back to that. And we've been able to do it at a conference level. We're trying to get back to that at a national level. So that's kind of the makeup of our, and obviously those are our full-time coaches. So that's where we thrive the most, I was in the events where we're here all the time. So, but yeah, I mean, half our team again is distance, and then we have two coaches on like the sprint, jump, hurdle side. But yeah, that's kind of how we break things down. I mean, we got a good distance crew, or throws crew. We've had some good individuals, but as a whole, that's probably like more of our weaker side of the program. So
you referenced your
I know
wife
that doesn't fit well with you.
What's that? That throws guy
I said, I know
myself.
that doesn't fit well with you. Yeah. Yeah. If you ever want to move to Pella, I'd take a throws coach. So, or
Well,
another throws coach, I said.
Well, Don offered me a part-time job this morning when I'm ready to retire, he said. And I
Yeah.
said, why not full-time, you know? So we were having a chuckle at
Yeah.
that. So you
Your
referenced
wife could be
your,
our team psychologist.
maybe, you said your wife got a volleyball job. Was it at Central?
Yeah. So my wife, I met her in Aurora. At the time, she was coaching high school. And then during our time dating, she had taken a job at Dominican University, is in River Forest, Illinois, Division III school. And then she had knew someone that had knew this job opened, and they put her name in before she didn't apply. They put her name in for her, and then they called Jeannie, the Central did, and she came down for an interview and really liked it. And so yeah, she's the head volleyball coach here at the college.
So you were drawn there by necessity at some levels. So how did you get connected
Yeah,
with
at
them
some
once,
level,
once
yeah.
you were there?
Yeah, it was actually pretty, I guess, ironic. She was the volleyball coach, and we were living apart 4-ish, 5 hours, and making it work. But every time I would come visit, I would just sit down and chat with the AD, and he kind of mentioned hey, we're thinking of restructuring. This is what we're going to do, that type of stuff. And so when they decided to pull the trigger and the job opened, obviously I applied for it. And according to him, no one else on the search committee knew I was Jeannie's wife, that she was my wife. So I don't know if that played a part or not, but I was able to get the job. So it kind of worked out well.
You guys have a really tough conference as far as track and field goes. I mean, you've got teams
We do have a very hard conference.
Qualifying for national championships or in the running for national championships every year. So what sets Central apart from those other schools?
That's a great question. I think our town and our community is really what separates us from most of those other schools outside of some of our facilities and things like that. But Pella is a very unique community. It's founded from Dutch immigrants. So, that's our mascot is the Dutch. So we have this whole Dutchy vibe, and all the buildings got special colors and unique looks to them. And we have a Tulip Time Festival that draws 10,000 plus people here every year. So that's, it's just a different atmosphere than most schools. And it's complete opposite of where I was before at Aurora. Aurora was 4,000 kids, a lot of commuters. Here, everyone lives on campus. It's a smaller, tight-knit community. The campus and the town are more integrated. It's 2 blocks from the campus to the town square. So the people that come here, they come here because of more than the school. They come here because of the people, the relationships that they're going to build, and they just really love Pella. A lot of kids don't leave Pella. They find their husband or wife, they get married here in one of the churches, or on campus. They find jobs here through some of the bigger corporations that we have. We're only a town of 10 to 12,000 people, but we have Pella Windows headquarters. We have Vermeer, which is a world-leading manufacturer in farming. They're a $3 billion business. So just a lot of big companies with their headquarters. And so there's just a lot of job opportunities as well. And so, but it's definitely a different campus. It's not going to be like your state schools in some of these smaller campuses where kids are maybe looking for this super social party atmosphere. Our kids are a little bit more structured, focused, work hard, in the classroom, on the track, or the field, or whatever it may be. Sets us apart a little bit. It may hurt us sometimes, but it makes my life easier. Our kids academically are way more focused and driven, and I don't have to chase kids around to go to class or grade checks and all that type of stuff.
So has there been a lot of growth on campus that you've talked about? What have you seen that's exciting, that's enhancing that student-athlete experience at Central?
Yeah. So the biggest thing for us is just our facilities. We continue to, regardless of whether it was fighting through COVID or through this, new times where more kids aren't going to school or things are costing more, we still have a great support system from the town, the community, alumni. So we're able to just fundraise really well and just continue to provide things to our athletes to give that experience to them. So, we have an entire building dedicated to athletics. It has a full-size 200-meter indoor track. It's attached to our weight room. Our weight room is just all glass and it overlooks the indoor track. We have 13 squat racks / platforms. We have 3 full-time strength coaches, 5 full-time athletic trainers. We have an outdoor track. Every sport has their own facility on campus. Baseball, softball, soccer, tennis. We have our own cross-country course, which includes putting greens and driving ranges for the golf team, out in that area. So, no one has to go off campus everyone has their own space, basketball, volleyball, all the indoor sports. So I think that's really been, and like the building I'm in, like when I first got here, it was still going through like a renovation phase. So it was like a 3 phase, it was like a 5, 6 year project. And so they just finished that during my time here. And now we're doing like a Dutch Forever 2.0. We're going to, add lights to some of our outdoor facilities, turf some of the fields, redo the track. We just redid the football field, updated our video board. Just every year we're just trying to continue to do more and more and provide our kids the best resources so they get that, big time experience just in a more intimate academic setting, basically.
It's great to be at a place that is investing and continues to grow and, is just in a healthy
Yeah.
space.
I mean, obviously we have our challenges like anyone else, and just the landscape of higher ed is changing, with all the federal government stepping in and stuff. But for the most part, yeah, the support system definitely benefits us a lot. And, being out here in Iowa, smaller towns, smaller schools, smaller communities, it's way different than being in like the Chicagoland area as far as like so many more legacies and like people want to be closer to home, like sometimes out here 3 hours is far. Like I went to school Maryland to Indiana 12 hours. That wasn't like anything, but these kids here 3 hours, you would think they're halfway across the country because it's so far away from their family, so that's kind of the biggest difference just in the region that we're located as well, so you got to use that to your advantage. Pella is a family-oriented community, so that kind of helps us sometimes too.
What's the percentage of population that are student athletes on campus?
80% of our kids are student athletes. It's pretty high. I mean, it's between 70 and 80, but yeah, it's really high. So again, we're a small school, 12 to 1,300 students, about pretty average during my time here. There might have been a few more back in the day, but during my 7 years, it's kind of in that range. But very high student athlete ratio.
That has to be a great environment to be a part of for those students because everybody's engaged in everything that they're doing together.
For sure, yeah. Everyone's, doing the same thing. They're here for the same reasons, like everyone has the same routine, structure, and yeah, I definitely think it helps create a cool atmosphere, You just get a lot of support, obviously, a lot of things that we do tailor to the student athlete experience, which just helps their overall experience, both academically and athletically. So, like when some schools, I don't know, I can't remember what it was like at Valpo for the track, but we kind of maybe talked about this earlier, but, like we just have a set time for classes and a set time for practice. So it's very similar to a lot of kids' high schools where like you go to school during the day, practice in the afternoon. So we don't have to worry about labs and stuff running over and those type of things. And you don't get that a lot at any school, really. I mean, I don't think I've been at a single school except for here that has a structure like that, where they separate those times. There's literally like a 2-3 hour window where there's no class. So everyone can practice at the same time.
Yeah, Valpo was supposed to have that, but, with some of those labs, like you were saying, experience at
they just ran over,
or whatever. Yeah, and then we were obviously sharing a football facility too with the track around it at the time, so trying to schedule around that too so that we're not in each other's ways. It always made a difference. So.
Yeah, and we do have a track.
Go ahead.
I was going to say our track is around our football field, but it's only a football field. There's no soccer on it. Soccer has their own grass field here at Central, so... And the head football coach, like I said, has a similar background. Both his daughters, one's still on our program, one graduated. So we work pretty good with him, so that doesn't bother us too much.
We tried to get along with everybody.
Yeah.
So the academic side of things, what's it take to get into Central? And then talk to me about cost to the students. I mean, typically at private school, you're going to, at least on paper, you're paying a little bit more in tuition when it comes to the costs.
Yeah.
But I do know places offer a lot of aid. Yeah,
so academically... I think our average GPA is somewhere in the 3.5 range, maybe somewhere around there. I mean, we're not super strict as far as getting admitted necessarily. There's kids that get in below that, but I'd say most of our kids are around 3.5, give or take. So I'd say a little higher end academically, but with athletics, you kind of get some kids on the lower end as well. So major wise, we have pretty much everything, but we have an accredited engineering program. It's a small program, but it's accredited. It's a good program. But business is a really big one for us. Education, and I will say kinesiology/biology, because they're now together under one umbrella. And that's because we have an entire pre-health track. So AT, PT, OT, pre-med, pre-vet, dentistry, optometry. We do a really good job with that. And then something else that stemmed out of kinesiology that separates us from a lot of schools is we might be one of 4 or 5 schools in the country. We have a specific strength and conditioning major. So it's its own major now. So it's not kinesiology get into strength and conditioning. It's a strength and conditioning major. The reason we started it is it's just a big part of what we've always done here. But it's strength and conditioning will become like athletic training and physical therapy in the sense that if you do not major in strength and conditioning in the next coming years, you won't be able to sit for the CSCS anymore. So with what we've been able to do and some of the resources we have, we kind of took the forefront and added it as its own major to start. So I don't know the exact timeline, but it's definitely coming down the pipe as far as they won't let you sit for that specific certification. And so that's something else that separates us a little bit. But we have an entire building for them, which is cool. They got underwater body weighing station, VO2 max, Wingate bikes, force plates, Tendo machines to measure bar speed. So any and everything you can think of from that standpoint.
Do you get to play on those at all?
I don't. Their kids do, yeah. So
that's what I mean. Yeah,
our strength coaches. Yeah, our strength coaches will use the Tendo machines a lot. Our distance team doesn't do the VO2 max a ton, but a lot of kids, half our kids, or if not more, are in that major, so they get to mess with that stuff all the time, and they're always doing like studies and stuff like that.
What's something that the average person would be shocked to know about Central?
Oh, that's shocked to know?
Yeah.
That's a good question. I mean, I really think just the whole Dutch thing is what kind of is unique to people, like how valued tulips are in this town, so there's a whole day that they dedicate to planting tulips, and there's a whole day after tulip time they dedicate to digging them out, and it's like a crime to like mess with the tulips, so it's a big deal. It's kind of something like that. So that would kind of be the unique thing. I mean, the best way we describe this town, I like to say in the summer, just think of the movie, what was that baseball? Sandlot. That's the summer around here. There's one community pool for the whole town. Kids riding their bikes, whether that's not all baseball anymore, but it's any and every sport you can think of. And then the winters are a hallmark. Like we literally have like horseback carriage rides downtown, Christmas lights up all 24/7, so things like that. But I did probably forget to go over the cost. So
sure, yeah, let's talk through that.
Yeah, sorry, I forgot to mention. But yeah, tuition for us next year is like $21,900. Room and board is like $11,000. Our total cost is like $33,900, $34,000, somewhere in that range. So it's a little bit pricey. Obviously, it's a private school, but about 4 or 5 years ago, we took a stance to kind of like just give you what it actually costs to go to school. So no more of this like $60,000, $70,000, $80,000, and then giving you this ridiculous scholarship to like offset that cost, So we just lowered our tuition to make it more realistic. But yeah, we basically give academic scholarships. Here at Central, we give scholarship for getting applied. So all you do is apply, and once you're admitted, you get $1,000 just for that process. You can get up to $8,000 for your GPA. And then we have a Scholar Day event where you come to campus. There's like 4 dates. And you do like an interview, group discussion, and throughout that process, you earn additional scholarship money up to $2,000. But you also are competing. We give away somewhere, I think, between 6 and 10 full and half tuition scholarships. So of that group that comes to that campus on those Scholar Days, they'll pick 6 to 10 kids and give some full and half tuition scholarships. And then obviously financial aid with FAFSA and stuff. So we do a really good job. We're pretty competitive, like from a private school standpoint, we're pretty much competitive with most schools. Sometimes we even outbeat some of the state schools, just because they don't give as much merit-based money. And here in Iowa, we have an Iowa tuition grant, which is only eligible for certain, income brackets, but it's only eligible for private schools, so the public schools aren't able to give it. So that kind of benefits us a little bit as well.
It's actually really refreshing to hear, a school take that step back and adjust those prices so that you don't have to play that game. I mean, people do get scared away from places when they look at that price tag and they think, how am I ever going to afford $60,000?
Yeah.
And then they got to figure it out, and they go through that process, and it's actually about half of that. But at least having a starting point that's, realistic for people, I think that probably it does a nice job for the university, I would bet.
Yeah, and I think that was where they're coming from, is like, we don't want to scare them away with this like
Right.
ridiculous sticker price that's not realistic, you know. But yeah, so they made that adjustment, and yeah, I think it's definitely helped. You know, people are definitely looking at us more, at least considering us because of that. So
So when you're vetting recruits, what is it specifically, maybe the characteristics that they have that you're looking for?
for sure, I mean, like obviously, you know, I got to find people that are going to help our program and stuff like that, time wise, but. We just want people that are going to continue to add to the culture of the team and, you know, the culture of the school. And again, that's just finding good people, people that are going to be hard workers, that are going to, you know, represent us and themselves positively out in the community and that type of stuff. And just, you know, I just want great teammates, people that will hopefully eventually be leaders for us, and kids that are going to work hard. I think any sport, you can probably say this comment, but I think more so at Division 3, especially small institutions, you got to be intrinsically motivated. Like, you can't be driven by some medal you're going to get on Saturday, or a trophy, or, you know, NIL money or stuff like that. Like, you got to want to do it because you want to do it. And so that's really what we look for. Kids are going to work hard. You know, like in Division 3, we only have a certain amount of time we can work with you, even less so than in the higher levels. So there's periods where we still expect them to be training or doing stuff, but we can't be there to make them do it or to watch them do it. So just finding the people that are going to do that and motivate others around them to do that is really kind of what we're looking for. But again, it's just people that kind of fit, you know, who we are and what we're about. And that's really the biggest thing. Again, the first thing we talk about when any kid comes on campus isn't track and field. It's going to be relationships. Like, what are the relationships you're going to build here at Central? How's your experience here at Central going to help you? You know, we talk about these next 4 years are going to set you up for the next 40 years, you know, and that's finding, you know, your friendships and that stuff, but also academically and just you growing as a person, you know, so, and
So
finding yourself.
what's a recruiting process look like for you specifically? When do you start reaching out to students? And then really, how should they get in touch with you if they're interested?
Yeah, these days I feel like there's no start or end really. It just kind of blends into one year to the next. You know, you'll be working like we're working on 2026, but you got 27s and 2028s kids that are super motivated, which is great. But it's
Mm-hmm.
just like, you know, like we're still 2-3 years out. So yeah, I mean, we try to obviously keep up with the times and do what everyone else is doing and try to, you know, everything just keeps getting pushed earlier and earlier. But for us, obviously, we'll utilize any resource we have online to find times and marks and things like that, and that kind of fit what we're looking for, because that's the easiest thing to see in track and field. Is it's pretty black and white. You either do run this time or throw this far. So we'll kind of start there. We'll utilize like a mailer system, email system within at least the state of Iowa, reaching out to coaches about kids. Obviously, places like NCSA and stuff like that. But even when I go on those websites and these companies that do this recruiting now, like I am more specific, I guess. So like I'll be more strict about the GPA. Like I won't lower it down to 2.5, even though you could maybe get in potentially.
Yeah.
But I'll put it a little bit higher, and I'll only look for kids that are like willing, like has a box on there, like, are you willing to go out of state, you know, or something like that, or do you want a small school? Like I'm not going to waste my time with kids that are just trying to like throw this big large net out there. Like I want to find kids that are going to be a good fit, so you know we can really build that relationship. So, and that's part of it too. But it's really just about getting connected, whether it's a DM or a text or an email, and then just setting up a phone call and getting them to campus. And we try to start doing more junior day stuff. So, you know, in the spring we're really trying to hit, you know, juniors, and we want to, you know, build that relationship, get you on campus at least once in the summer or late spring, and then try to get you back during the school year, your senior year. And that's kind of our basic process. You know, we really think here at Central, if we can get kids to campus 2-3 times, that really benefits us. For some kids, that's easier than others, but most of our kids are from Iowa. We're starting to touch a few out of states like Nebraska, Colorado, Kansas. We'll dip into like the western side of Illinois. We have a few kids from Texas. We'll get a couple random ones there, but you know, majority of our kids are within the Iowa border at least. So it's a little easier for them to get to campus. And again, we want you to come back, see campus, meet the staff, come back, meet the team, meet a professor. You know, the more times you're here, the more people you connect with, those relationships again are being built, and that's really important to our recruiting process. So
So with every student nowadays having some sort of social media account, whether it's Instagram or Twitter, or if they still use Facebook, which most of the moms and dads are on there now.
Yeah.
How do you guys effectively use social media to communicate your vision for your team? And then do you also then maybe even vet some of these students that have the social media accounts from the recruiting side?
Yeah. Like I said earlier, obviously I'll utilize them. Like sometimes it's easier to get a hold of a kid through a DM, through Twitter or Instagram than it is like getting their cell phone. Sometimes like coaches aren't willing to give out that information anymore. So, if I can find them on there, I'll reach out. But yeah, obviously you don't want to see them posting silly stuff, or like if I do jump on someone's page and it just, I don't know, doesn't look like something I think represents us, then I might not be as inclined to try as hard to recruit that individual, So I don't think it needs to be perfect. If you want to post you're going on a trip or doing this and that's fine. But there's just certain things that might be red flags, that just doesn't look like it represents what we stand for. So, but yeah, we'll do a little bit of vetting there and stuff like that. So, but I think social media is just the life these days. So yeah, it's really big, and trying to, communicate with kids. And from our standpoint, on our page, we just want it to be streamlined and consistent as far as like the images we're putting out. And, we just don't want some random like photo from a phone. We want it to be like cropped a certain way and that type of stuff. And obviously highlighting our successes and the people on our team and the resources and stuff like that. So I'm just trying to, make us stand out as best as we can. But it's hard. Like hopefully you post something and kids, it pops up on their feed and they see it, but you don't know how all those algorithms work really. So
is there a place for NIL at Central?
Yeah, it's definitely available. I don't know if a lot of kids here take advantage of it, or like we're just not like I don't know if we're like actively like using it for recruiting. But we have a young lady who works with Fairway. They're like a supermarket grocery store chain. So she's going to be a brand ambassador for them, and she'll get benefits that way. And we have a young lady that's basketball track that works with a local like smoothie shop, things like of that nature. I think NIL has gotten away from what its intention was at the higher levels. At the big schools, they're now using it as a recruiting tool, and it's just boosters. It's basically making what was illegal legal. Boosters just saying, here's $1 million, go give it to this kid so he can come be our star athlete, where I think it was intended for kids to just be like, hey, I'm on social media, or I'm the star athlete, I'm going to go represent this car dealership, and that's going to help get you more cars, and so we're kind of more still stuck on that realm of it, where like if you're good at social media influencing and you want to be on Instagram and Twitter and TikTok posting stuff all day, and go for it if you have the skills and the set, and go make some money doing it. So it is a small town, so a lot of these companies will invest in the kids. So
no, that makes total sense. I think that when you do have that small town and people are as engaged and connected there like you've shared, to get a student to come and talk or represent your business, I think can be big part. So
yeah.
So as a student starts to narrow down their college selections, what advice would you give them if they're interested in any school? What's the best way for them to make a decision on what their next step is?
I think visiting is a huge thing. I know, depending on how far away and all that, and missing school, but I think you got to get on campus. I think you got to find, obviously, being Division III, like the right academic fit. But I also wouldn't overthink the academic fit. One thing that we preach here at Central, too many kids are like reliant on a piece of paper saying, I'm an electrical engineer. And so if I go to a school that my paper doesn't say that, I'm not going to get an electrical engineering job. And I think that's not true. Like, we do a great job here of developing academic resumes, and I think kids just need to dive more into what is my academic experience going to look like? How are you going to help get me connected, get me those experiences to get a job? I think some kids just be like, oh, they got my major, that's good. So I think some kids overlook that a little bit. They read too much into what's on a piece of paper when they graduate versus their academic experience.
Yeah.
The other thing, again, getting on campus and meeting the people. Again, that's just what we value is, the people you're going to meet here, feeling like home, that type of thing. And, we have great facilities, but we do preach to kids all the time, like, having these facilities, when we get to use them, is very important to your athletic experience, and it's going to be a big part of your experience, but it should not be your only deciding factor. If that's the only reason you're choosing here, all it's going to take is that one thing to go wrong, and then you're not happy anymore, right? So, again, we just really talk about like finding the place where you think you'll be able to grow and develop athletically, academically, individually, socially, whatever it may be. I think some kids just make choices like trying to follow a boyfriend or a girlfriend, or all my buddies are going to this school, so I want to go to this school. Like, everyone has their priorities, I guess, but I would just tell kids that if you don't want to get caught in this whole transfer portal game, like, do a little bit extra legwork. And, schools are going to recruit you and tell you what you want to hear for the most part, and they're going to highlight their best attributes. But, if you want to try to narrow it down, then do that extra legwork and figure out, like, what are they not telling me maybe, or what am I missing, those type of things. So, yeah. And I know it can be overwhelming, especially if you have 100 schools calling or texting you, but
yeah, I mean, that's a
if
huge
you can get it down to your,
go ahead.
I was going to say, yeah, if you've narrowed it down to 3 to 5 schools, then that next step would be like, can I go back to campus and dive more into the academics with a professor, like those type of things.
Yeah, the whole thing. I mean, that's a huge part of why I started the business that I'm in is just I've watched people make those decisions, rashly, and they're like, oh, we're only going to go for one part of this, and it's not a given that it's going to be, there for 4 years, or you don't get injured or something like that if it's an athletic piece.
Yeah.
And so if that changes, is there enough there that keeps you there, keeps you grounded, and doesn't have you thinking the grass is greener somewhere else and wasting time and energy? So, to hear that from somebody else who gets it, I think is awesome. So,
for sure.
So what does outside life, like outside of coaching, look like for you? You're a married guy, right? Married to another coach, but what, when you're not coaching, what are you doing?
That's a great question. Well, from August through May, it's pretty much coaching. But no, the time when I'm not here, I now have a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old. So they take up the rest of my time pretty much. So, it's that balance with my wife's in season, so she's got to stay late. So I usually do the mornings, or she'll try to get them off to school or daycare, and then I'll pick them up, and do dinner and bedtime and all that. So now our summers are, wrapped around recruiting and then trying to have our kids go see grandma and grandpa, especially my family being out east. So, and then we don't have too many activities yet, thankfully. That'll be a new challenge when they're in sports themselves. But right now it's more about just daycare and letting them enjoy life, I guess. So, but our biggest challenge with the kids is like, can they go on a trip with us? Do we need to find a babysitter? Who's going to watch them when we're both on the road or whatever? So that's our biggest challenge right now.
Are they around your teams?
Yeah, that's my life. Yeah, the kids on our teams will help, but again, like when she's in season, her kids can't help. So then we rely on my kids a little bit. But typically if there's like an event on a Saturday, like we host a big high school cross country meet. Well, all my kids have to work it. So and she's out on the road, so no one can help those weekends. So yeah, there's some times where our athletes are available, but there's times where they're not too. So then it's her mom coming out, my mom coming out, or just finding someone local. The negative about a small town is there's only 2 daycares and limited options in that sense. But yeah, we find a way to make it work. I mean, in a couple of years they can come with us to most things, but it's hard to change diapers in the middle of a track meet.
Probably seen it done somewhere along the way.
Yeah, you probably have. I'm sure there's a lot more moms out there that are better at it than I am, but.
Well, hats off to you for
doing
it.
Yeah, that's kind of my life right now. So just, coaching and chasing those 2 around.
Well, you know what? Take the most advantage of it as you can, because, man, it goes like that. I mean, I've got a 16 and a 14, soon to be 17 and 15, and the time that they got to spend around the teams that I was a part of and connected to at Valpo are awesome. And I just think that growing up in that sports environment, they get an understanding for the importance of that in life, but prioritizing things as well. And so
for sure,
a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Okay, so a couple more questions for you. Okay, here's
okay.
One. What is it that gets you up and gets you excited to go to work every day?
I think it's just working with the kids. Like this time of year is kind of like the worst, because it's like you just get up, you're recruiting, like the kids are on campus, but you're not able to like interact with them like coaching wise, but I think once the season gets going, it's just exciting to get up and like looking forward to that 4 o'clock time frame where it's like, okay, what are we doing today? How are we going to get better? And then just seeing that come to fruition on the weekends and, championship season and that type of stuff. And just seeing kids be able to, like, I think I've done a good job coaching. I'm definitely not, don't think I'm the best coach there is out there, but just to see kids doing things that they've never done before or thought they could do, or, hitting times that they've never tried to hit, or breaking school records, like, that's, I think, the motivation for doing it, is just helping those kids have those experiences, because the rest of the day is not that enjoyable, sitting on a computer and making phone calls and typing emails and that type of stuff. But it's just part of the job, I guess.
And then lastly, what's the outlook for the season ahead for you guys? What's your expectations there from the team?
Yeah, I mean, our goal obviously every year is to just keep getting better and trying to rise the ranks in the conference. Like you mentioned, we're in a tough conference, and there's events in our conference where kids might not even be at the conference meet because of limitations and entries and our national qualifiers. So just trying to find a way each and every day to get better and improve our team and recruiting and try to, work up to being conference champs. So our women have been third the last couple of years, so we're trying to break that barrier. Our men kind of bounce around between fourth and fifth. So I think just trying to break those barriers and work our way up. And then obviously continue to make a presence at the national level. That's kind of the cool thing about track and field, is you can kind of separate conference from nationals, where like team sports, you're like, if you don't win conference, you don't even get a shot at nationals, So just kind of continue to develop individuals and relays to get to that point. Those are kind of some of our biggest goals, really. So each and every year. But yeah, I mean, other than that is just, just keep working hard, getting the kids to, try to do things that they've never done before, really. And it's not even our best kids, too. Like, I want kids that are here because they love Central and love the sport of track to accomplish things, and, getting a female 200 runner to run 26, like, that's a big deal. 26 might never do anything at the conference level, but that's a big accomplishment too,
Sure.
So yeah, so goal wise, we just got to break that.
Yeah, no, breaking barriers is a huge piece of success along the way. So I wish you nothing but the best this year. I'm sure you guys are going to have an awesome season. They're in good hands with you there, and
yeah,
thanks so much for taking the time to join us today. I appreciate you. And guys, that's all we have time for today with the Coach's Corner, presented by On Track College Advising. Until next time, have a great evening.
Thank you.